Welcome back, folks. This is the Doc Owen Show. I hope you've been with us for the first half. I think we're rambling right along. One of the things that I remember bringing up last year at this time that was a major concern of mine about 9/11 was the fact that we never took control of the language. We never created a battle cry, a unified battle cry about the event of 9/11. We are now I'm beginning to see a social media driven battle cry with hashtag never forget. And I think that's great. So I think that needs to be promoted as you go to Facebook, as you go to Twitter, as you do things within the social media realm, add hashtag never forget to whatever your statement is, and we will get it ingrained, and it will become, we need a catchphrase by which to help remember the seriousness of that event and to help strengthen our resolve to correct it. And the reason that I say that is because as a Texan, and even I would submit to you the rest of the world knows the phrase, remember the Alamo. I mean, it's just, that's been ingrained in United States psyche since the event in 1836. So let me give you a bit of a history lesson that, if you'll remember my statement at the beginning of the show, this is before my time, so this really is history. I can call it history. The Alamo occurred on March the 6th, 1836, was the end of a 13-day siege by the Mexican army on a group of citizens in the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas. And the reason that occurred, you need to know this, I think, is because the Texans, the folks who came here in the first place, the immigrants who came here in the first place, mostly Scots, mostly from south of the United States, they migrated into Texas. And as a matter of fact, they created the absolute first known use of a three-letter acronym in history. A lot of people don't know that. You know how inundated we are with three-letter acronyms, and, you know, you can't have a conversation with somebody without them coming up. They created the very first in the late, like 1830, 1825, when they were all coming across to come to Texas. You would see this three-letter acronym on trees and on buildings and on houses as you walked through the South. The three-letter acronym was GTT, Gone to Texas. It was carved into the trees. So all these folks came over here, and they came over because they were disappointed in the national government and all the things that the national government was doing, et cetera, et cetera. So they just blew out of there and came to Texas, which was outside the United States. It was... They were welcomed. As a matter of fact, they were encouraged, get this, by the Mexican government to cross over into Mexican territory, and they would be left alone, and they would be given Obamacare. Oh no, that wasn't existing. But it was the same. It was an upside down. It was a reverse. The Mexicans invited the folks to come in. All right. Well, about 9 years in, and they were given land. They were left to do their thing, and the Mexicans were glad to have them there because they were populating a territory that they had very little use for at the time. It was way outside their norm, and so, you know, it was creating some population in a territory that they controlled, and that was a good thing. Well, about 9 years into this program, a fellow by the name of General Santa Anna, who was the president of Mexico at the time, decided to abolish the Mexican Constitution. He rescinded it, was the exact words that I read. He abolished Congress. He abolished any form of democracy and turned Mexico into a dictatorship. Did that upset the Texans? What do you think? So, fights ensued. The Texans declared, they hollered bull sugar on the deal, created their own constitution, and said, okay, that's fine. We'll take over from here. But Mexico didn't exactly let it go just to say, okay, sorry, my bad. A fight ensued. And there was a major fight at the Alamo on March the 6th, 1836, when everyone was killed. Everyone, men, women, and children, anybody that was in the Alamo was slaughtered by Santa Anna. Shortly thereafter, there was a thing that we know in Texas as the Goliad Massacre, where all of the prisoners in Goliad, a little over 400 of them, were executed ISIS style by the Mexican government on Palm Sunday. I mean, the fight was over. They were prisoners. And they went in and executed them because Santa Anna didn't want any. He wanted all the rest of the Texans that were left to know how nasty and vicious they were, ISIS style, and he wanted the word to spread so that he could put down the uprising. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you're coming from, what he didn't realize were these were Texans. These were Americans. And we don't run from a problem. We run to a problem. That's what happened in Benghazi. That's what Americans are made of. When something happens, you don't shirk and run away. You bug up, you straighten up, and you run towards the situation to see if you can help. So, in April of 1836, there was a little battle in an area called San Jacinto, Texas. It's in Harris County, now home of Houston, Texas, third or fourth largest city in the country, where Santa Anna was met by General Sam Houston. And by the way, if you're not familiar, on one of the major highways in Texas, there's I don't know how big it is. It's like a 3-story statue of Sam Houston over outside of Sam Houston State Park. We think a lot of the guy. He defeated Santa Anna, held him prisoner for a few weeks, didn't kill him, didn't do the massacre, didn't treat them the way they did. And by the way, it was a surprise attack. Supposedly, 2 stories were Santa Anna was they have a habit of taking an afternoon siesta, and it's just something that's well known. So the troops were taking an afternoon siesta, and the Texans took advantage of that. The other story is there was a habit that Santa Anna had of capturing one of the prettiest women from the other side, and having his way with her, entertaining her, or whatever you want to call it. So there was a lady that went down in history by the name of Emily Morgan. As a matter of fact, interestingly enough, that's one of the tales is that's where the Yellow Rose of Texas song came from. And interestingly enough, there's a really nice hotel in downtown San Antonio overlooking the Alamo by the name of Emily Morgan. I didn't know that until 20 minutes ago, or doing the preparation for the show. So we lost 9 people. They lost several hundred. Long story short, but the main thing is we had a battle cry. Before they went out onto this plain to have this fight with Santa Anna, that we were severely outnumbered. We had known that everybody at the Alamo got killed. We knew that they massacred everybody in Goliad. Sam Houston got himself up on a tree stump and told everybody in the crowd that he wanted them, when they charged out on the field, to yell at the top of their lungs, "Remember the Alamo, remember the Alamo, remember the Alamo." chant it, chant it, chant it, almost like a cult. That's what we're all about. Remember the Alamo. And you could see the fever pitch growing in the soldiers that he had. Unfortunately, there was one guy in the crowd that was the precursor to what we call politically correct. And as everybody was chanting this, remember the Alamo, he raised his hand and he expressed concern that if we all do that and act that way, we might offend some people from the other side of the border. And that would not necessarily be a good idea. General Houston gave what I think would be an appropriate response at that point in time. Didn't fire. You were supposed to have heard a gunshot. I think it did fire, but we just couldn't hear it in the headset. I'll find out the podcast. The main thing is, there was no such thing as political correctness. It's over the past 13 years, I would submit to you, it's not doing us any good. We're not telling the truth about who we are and who we are supposed to be in this world. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, folks. It's something to be proud of. The world expects us to be that way. Not just that. The world depends on us to be that way. So, he didn't make the march, but we won the fight. Okay, we've done the boat lifters. We've talked about San Jacinto. Where are we on time? Let me talk a little bit about local stuff, and then I'll take another break and regroup my thoughts. Speaking of political correctness, there is a movement, conversation, idea on the San Antonio City Council that they want to start handing out tickets, fines, to people who reach out their window and hand some change or a hamburger or whatever to a panhandler, to somebody who is homeless. They want to penalize the people that are trying to do the right thing. I've heard this notion before. I heard it up close and personal from a mayor of a very major city in Texas. That it's best for the homeless if we don't feed or donate to them, because then that requires that they go into a shelter where they can get the proper care. I got to tell you something. A lot of these folks don't want that proper care. They don't want the string that is attached to it. They would prefer to be independent than to become dependent upon the government. Half of me feels sorry for them, but the other half of me respects them. Because they're there because they want to be. A lot of them are there because they want to be. All right, not a lifestyle I would choose to lead, but okay, go for it. All right, we're coming up on, I get to take another little sip of water. What else have I got? Oh, I got one more thing local I need to talk about. As we come up, because it's going to drive into the next one, as we come up on the November elections, the first thing that's going to happen right after we get the people in office is in the state of Texas, we will vote for a Speaker of the House. We all know how important that position is on a national level. They make the news all the time. John Boehner and Harry Reid could